Hello there. Niiamah Ashong here, founder of Outliers Edge and the leader of the Trailblazer Oasis, where we champion the leaders who are shaping the next era of humanity. We have one such leader with us here today in today's conversation. I get the pleasure of slowing down and spending time with Eve Lahjani. Eve, it is incredible to be in space with you. And I'm going to explain why in just a bit, but let me just put out in here, like, it is good to be in conversation with you.
Likewise, I'm so happy to be here. It's been great to know you, and I'm excited to offer anything I can to be of service.
That's awesome. Then this is where I would go here too. I have found what will make this, like, and for me, I'm like, oh, I want to be of service here. And like, let's just both also be selfish. And where I would say is like, let us play with the idea that being selfish might lead to the most service for us in this conversation. And
There's no private good. I'm down with that.
All right, cool. I had a feeling you would be. So Eve, I had teased out that I'm really excited to be in conversation with you here. And I think one of the reasons for that is that like one of the things I get about you is like you have tremendous presence. And the word natural comes to mind when I think about you. I have enjoyed our conversations here together. I watched your TED Talk right before we came on here, and I was like, this person exudes just like a natural sense of being. And I want to put that out into this space here. There's an element of this that I don't necessarily think has come easy. And knowing this, like some of your stories, some of what you're really about, like it's been intentional choices that have led you to this place of being an expression role. But I do want to just say, as we get into this conversation, that like who you be is very powerful for me. And it calibrates me, and it also wakes and elevates me just by being in conversation and presence with you. So I'm very, very excited for this conversation.
Wow, I have to just thank you for saying all of that. That felt so beautiful to be reflected back to. So thank you for sharing that.
Absolutely. Thanks for shining your light so I can I have the ability to reflect that, you know. So Eve, I think of you as a tremendous person. I would love to I tend to think about people between like what they are externally, what they're doing out in the world, and I focus on like who they're being. But I also think it's important to like give space and give space for the accolades and the accomplishments that you've done, so we can route ourselves in like or root ourselves in the external things that you do, the game that you play externally. And then I think our conversation will probably focus more on the internal, but I want to give space for that. And I also think that it's also important as we play this year, a bunch of leaders and outlying leaders that are in this game here. I love to just like celebrate some of the ways that people are outliers and what they've been able to accomplish through that. So would you mind just sharing with me and with us, like, just what are some of like your proudest accomplishments, some of the things about you that you feel make you an outlier, that you've done that make you an outlier?
I'd be really happy to share. Some would think that it would be my TEDx talk. You mentioned it, and that is something I'm very proud of. But something that in my business that has also made me very proud is the YouTube videos I do that are from a very vulnerable part of me. Because oftentimes it's from my own eating experiences or my own challenges that I come from. So for me, I've been very proud to offer that service to people, of sharing something I just learned, something just happened to me. I was about to eat a chocolate covered almond emotionally, and I share with them like what was present inside of me. So I feel like it's been through my vulnerability that I've been able to provide support to people. And I've even gone so far as to create some videos where I'm just eating a meal. I'm talking about a topic, but I'm sitting there eating with somebody who wants help eating, I'm putting in air quotes, normally. A lot of my clients are challenged with eating too fast, of spacing out while they're eating, not being present with food, not chewing their food, not being able to identify their hunger or their fullness. So I take them through that step by step in real time in a video while I'm doing it too. And again, that's very vulnerable to be a so-called nutrition expert and be eating in front of people. It's quite confronting. I haven't seen anybody else do that. So for me, that has been a really fun edge to play, especially when I eat edgier things, I guess you could say. I have a video, one of my most popular videos is where I'm eating ice cream and a cookie with my brother. And we're having a conversation about eating foods that feel scary and what might come up for people. So that has been really fun to put myself in situations and to have conversations that are what people are really wondering. What do I do when I come home and it's late and I'm tired and I don't even know if I'm hungry or if I'm tired? How do I handle that? You know, like real nuanced situations that come from my own experience and my clients, of course, too. They're very inspirational too, because they're in it with me. But that is something I'm really proud of.
So I hear that, and a part of me comes alive. I hear you in the vulnerability of it. I hear you in like your deep understanding of your clients. When you were describing some of the challenges and the real like the real world thoughts that they're having. I'm like, oh, Eve really like knows and cares about the people that she serves. And so I just want to call that out. That feels so present for me. And then this other element of presence is really shown up. It was only about, I want to say, 5 weeks ago, maybe a little bit longer, but it's in the very like recent past that I heard of, at least I can recall hearing something about mindful eating and being present while eating. And like just the concept had never even like occurred to me, that I may not be present in my eating. And so when I hear you describing this, and it feels impactful just to like hear it and kind of like verbalized, but it goes another step further to actually like to be in the process of it and to be both mindful of eating while living life, like that concept, that juxtaposition, that feels like even more nuance, where it's like I know what I can do. I can sit here on my own with everything perfectly crafted, and I would be like, I could put my mind toward it. But like when I'm out in the world or doing something that's real, that level of nuance doesn't necessarily come in. And what I'm hearing from you is that like you're creating your videos with all that kind of in place. Am I getting that right?
Yeah, I really love what you brought up, because it's one thing to be able to be present and eat your food in a mindful way when you're home alone and there's nothing going on around you, and usually my clients, that's the first place that they master it, being able to eat present mindedly where it's easy and calm. But what happens after they have their baby? What happens when they're on a business meeting? What happens when they're traveling, when they're on a date? All these things, it could add like confounding factors to being present with food. So the way you got that intuitively, like the progression of it, like you could do it when there's no outside, interruptions, but how do you maintain that presence with food, with your body, when there could be so much distraction, is really something that my clients work towards. And for them, it was just 4th of July. For the listeners who are not here in United States, they're fireworks, we do family stuff, it's full of food. And my client has a baby, and she was with her in-laws, where it's all about food culturally, to push food and all that stuff. And she was so proud because she was able to bring that skill of being present with food and actually stopping eating when she was full, even though her in-laws were like, what, you don't like my cooking? Like what, and it was really interesting as she shared, and that's something we worked on, was her to be able to handle that pressure of like eat, like not only is it distracting, she's getting pressure to eat more, to overrun her body's own signals, and she was able to do that, and she was so proud. So I love what you brought up. There's so many layers to distraction and food. So yeah.
All right, we're gonna have to keep playing with this because I am in the States now. I was in Singapore for several years. I'm in the States now, so I just had my first 4th of July in 5 years and went on a family vacation. There's a whole counter of just like things that I had told myself I like it wasn't in the relationship that I wanted to have with food at the time, right? And I was like, oh, this is gonna be good. And I had come up to, I had like a general way that I've gone into vacations and things like that, where I had noticed that like it was just like a lost cause. It was like, well, I'm good all the time, but like I'm gonna go see my family. So like whatever happens. It's just this small period of time. And I equate it to I equate it to like a college basketball team that we follow. They're actually a pretty good basketball team. They just lost like almost every single game this last season. So take that for what you mean. But like the thing is, they're able to stay in the game. They're able to trade baskets, pretty consistently. But when there's an 0-7 run or an 0-10 run, like they're not able to make up that deficit. So like, and that was me that was one of the things that became more like apparent to me as I was going through this, where I was like, oh, I'm actually, I feel good on like the day-to-day basis. I'm trading baskets. I'm not really gaining, not really losing anything, but it's these moments where I don't know how to come back from, oh, I just put on 5 pounds because I just like let myself go, so on and so forth. So like there's things that if you're good with this in this conversation, I'm gonna be real with you, because I realize as we're talking, like, oh yeah, there's some things here that like I can't pretend that like I have all this like anywhere near like in mastery. And I would love to just be in this conversation and essentially be in the space that you do, where it's like, let's just be vulnerable with it, let's just be real and not talk about it hypothetically, but actually like get into some of what is actually happening. Are you good with that, by the way?
Absolutely. And I love what you're bringing up. And I'm excited to get vulnerable too.
Yeah.
I have a whole brand muffin story that happened the other day. So yeah, bring it, share, because we all eat. Let me first go a little bit further, especially
Yeah.
because we're talking to outliers here. Whoever stops and thinks about their relationship with food, really, we don't. If anything, we're told, eat that, don't eat this. It's recess, or lunchtime, that's when you're allowed to eat. Otherwise, in class, be quiet, don't eat, don't touch food. We've always been externally oriented when it's come to food. Everybody had rules for us. And so now as adults, many people are floundering because we never just learned what are our own rules. What is our body saying? Our body, what does that have to do with it? So most people are unclear about how to navigate food, especially if you're busy doing other things like getting your career, your family, your life off the ground. You're not thinking about this. And so what's really amazing is, just giving it a little attention could create bigger shifts in your life. So I'm very excited. And most people don't think about food. I'm a food expert. I talk about this all day. I'm a registered dietitian. I'm a master's in it. But still, I'm a student of food and my relationship with it.
So Eve, I feel like I want to create some space here for us, actually for anyone that comes in the future, because I want to actually go far more deeper into food. And I know that a lot of times, like a lot of us are watching this from the standpoint of being an outlying leader, and thinking, okay, well, how do I go and lead my mission out in the world? And I'm going to get to your mission in particular, because I mean, it is clear, like generally what your mission is, but I want to get to yours specifically. But I want to invite anyone that's listening and experiencing this with us here. We're going to have this conversation about food because Eve is a food expert, and that is like her domain. But I also hear when I hear you say these things, I could translate the challenges and experiences and thought processes that I have, or lack thereof, when it comes to food, to the way that I show up as a leader, the way that I show up in my family, the way that I show up in my business, the way that I show up like for myself, and so many other things. It's like, it really feels like I want to explore this conversation through the lens of food, because that is where you that is a place where you are just like exceptional at. And I can't help but hear well, I learned the rules as to how to be a great student, but now I'm out in the world and I don't get any more A's. Like, how do I create my own rules on like what success looks like? Or I learned the rules on how to like build a business through this way, but like that isn't working for me, but I don't know how to create my own rules, so on and so forth. So I want to create this kind of context here, so that if you're listening, you can listen like from the standpoint of like, we're gonna have a conversation about food and the things that come along with that, because like it's gonna be an excellent conversation. And you can listen with that ear on, or you can, I don't even want to say ear, you can experience it through that lens, or and or you can experience it through other things that you're translating, because the things that you're talking about, I'm hearing a transformation. I'm hearing that you speak the language of transformation, and you do it in the world of food and the individual's relation, like the individual and their food relationship. But I'm hearing transformation come through and through. And what is it like to go against the status quo? It's like, okay, the status quo is my mother-in-law at her home. I'm in her home. She's made her famous, like, bratwurst. And I'm saying, like, I'm making different choices than everyone else around me. That to me is leadership, And so I want to make sure that I call that out. We shine a light on this here so we can stay focused on the track that we are, and people can go ahead and make some translations to the specific environment that they're in, because everything you're saying is lighting something up inside of me where I'm like, I get that with food, and I get that in other places in my life, so like, anything to add to that, Eve? Anything like from your experience? Yeah,
I was going to ask you if I could add, because a really amazing thing happens, because I feel like food is a metaphor. How we do food is often how we do life, not often, always. So the person who has a hard time knowing when to start eating and when to stop eating, what those boundaries are, or what foods they prefer, or, is the same person who has that boundary issue in other areas of their lives. And so a really amazing thing happens is as people practice that connection, that alignment with food and their appetite. It's a fun metaphor, it's food, they strengthen something else inside of them simultaneously, is knowing themselves and living in alignment with themselves. And they surprise themselves often. Like, I didn't want to go out and I said no. And they've always been the yes person who'd always go, or I didn't want to do that favor, and I actually politely said no. So like, it's amazing as people learn how to eat in greater alignment with themselves and be in attunement with their body, learn how to ask themselves the questions. What do I want? How does that feel inside of me? That it translates into these other areas as well. So it's really, for me, that fascinates me to no end, because it ends up impacting. It's amazing because we think, oh, it's just food, but it ends up impacting their careers, their relationships, the clutter in their house, how they parent, and on and on and on. So many things. So does that match with what you were saying? It sounds like it goes along nicely. What do you think?
yeah. And I'm realizing, like, I don't need it to match, like I want to be in the experience of us both bringing our 100% here, and if that's how you see it, like, so be it. It just so happens that yes, these two things are in alignment, and I think that's where the magic is. I realized that I didn't want to be in a space where I was trying to like make some connections, all this stuff. Like, we've done the global connection, it will translate. Let us have this conversation, because I hear it in you, Eve. You're not just aware of it. And yes, you have a master's in this stuff here, but it feels like you have a master's in like the school of life around this, I feel like, and your mastery of this really shines through. I said at the very beginning that I consider you natural, right? And I think that the natural part of it, when I engage with you, is that like, everything feels like, it doesn't feel like there's resistance in the process. And it feels like there's an openness, a flow. It's like the idea of like resisting against. It's like, look, let's just embrace it. Let's embrace it. Let's dance with it rather than rejecting it. Let's like, and that there's a semblance of that just like seems to come through with you. So I'm very excited for every other place that we take this conversation. But I like to call this out, because I feel that there are layers and layers upon things where, like, wherever someone happens to be focused, if they're in the game of transformation and self-leadership, all right, how do you lead yourself? In my mind, I'm translating this like, how do I lead myself around food? I'm a great leader. I just choose to not be a leader when it comes to food. Like, like I can do this with so many other things, but with other things, I just let that go. And so I'm excited for us to keep expanding and playing and so on and so forth with this year. Sound good to you?
Sounds great. And food is particularly hard. Can I add more about that?
Flow, go please.
A lot of my clients are, you know, well, successful people who successful, whatever that means, but their life is on track. All these things are going, but they call food the final frontier. This is what I learned. And what I've noticed is because from the moment we're born, I mean, our first relationship is with food, right? When we're born, they clear this stuff out of our throats and then they put a pacifier or a bottle or something in our mouth. So our relationship with food or putting something in our mouth is pre-verbal. It's one of the first things that happened to us on this planet. And thereafter, food has been associated with being coddled, with being held, with so many other things. And so I think food is a particularly hard place to make conscious because so much of our relationship with food is unconscious. Furthermore, food is actually helpful for people who want to be unconscious. Because when life is hard or it feels sticky and you want to cheer yourself up, hey, ice blended or scoop of ice cream will do it greatly for many of us, right? So we use food to go unconscious. So that's why a lot of people have their lives in order or things make sense, but food seems to be the place where they seem to be faltering or having challenges, is because inherent to the struggle is a bit of unconsciousness. And so that's why it could be so exciting as people make their eating more conscious and as they bring more mindfulness, as you said, you just learned about that to their eating, it lights up all these other areas that they didn't even know that they were not aware of.
As this conversation goes on, I'm muting myself along the way, and then sometimes I'm like trying to unmute. I'm like, let's get to this. So with what you're saying, it just brings up a couple different things that feel important for me to like have us bring into this space, right? One, we're mission-oriented people here, right? And I know that you have a massive mission. It's clear in everything you say here. Would you mind sharing, like, what is the current manifestation of the mission that you're bringing to life?
That's a great question. The way I'm working with people in my one-on-one sessions is my manifestations of the work I get to do. As I mentioned earlier, the YouTube videos I have are really exciting to hear people from around the world respond to some of the things that I talk about. That's another manifestation. I'm invited to be on podcasts. I love doing this because I love interacting with other leaders in their fields. And often I'm invited to speak at different companies and conferences. In September, I'm really excited to be at the Los Angeles Women's Conference. It's like sold out and I'm really excited to have a breakout room. I was so honored to be invited to do that. So, even though some of those things scare me, I go where I'm called, because early on, because of my own food struggles and my own issues with eating, I promised that if I could be of service, if I could help, I want to do it. Doesn't matter how scared. I mean, it helps me move through the fear. I am scared. Like, it's hard for me to talk in front of people, but I don't let that stop me. It just makes me resolve even further. Like, if one thing I say could help somebody, if I'm down. Even those YouTube videos I make, like, I look at it and I'm like, my hair is messed up, or, oh, that's not perfect, or all my critics come up. And I just stay true with, what, if this is going to help somebody, I'm pretty sure they're not going to notice my smudged whatever. So those are the main ways I'm of service these days.
Yeah, I love that element of like, if this is going to help someone, they're pretty sure they're not going to notice. It's like, what is actually of substance here? What's actually of substance here? So that this feels good. I wanted to make sure we tapped in to mission and different things around that. I also feel, I feel like we're in the conversation here. And I wanted to just take a step to, like, you kind of like talked about like your own food journey, Do you mind just like shedding some light around like your experience here? Because I get to meet you now and your expertise. And when you say that, it makes me realize that like, oh, there was a time when you weren't an expert in it. And I was really curious about like the before now version of you, and a little bit about your journey to making the videos and being called on stages and bringing into and so on and so forth.
Yeah, well, it was so challenging. I'd wake up scared of what was going to happen with food that day. because I knew somewhere I was going to overeat, eat the wrong thing, be so mad at myself. So not only did I wake up with these fears, I'd actually even go to bed mad at myself of what had transpired with food. Okay. So those were the bookends of my day: terror of what was going to happen and total shame and regret and remorse of what had happened. So imagine what happened in between there, so out of touch with food, feeling like I had no handle on it. It seemed like food was in charge of me. And as challenging as that was feeling out of control with food, overeating, feeling uncomfortable in my body, having no internal or external boundaries, trying to follow rules, desperately trying to fix this and not being able to. That was definitely one chunk of it. The other chunk was the being so mad at myself, was the punishment of over exercising, trying to compensate by skipping meals, by the way, these things of like how I tried to fix it, restriction, being mad at myself and over exercising, that actually set me up for overeating the next day. That set me up for more food obsession and more out of control with food. I didn't know that back then. Now I know that. So for me, it was years of different variations of that struggle. And so that's what was happening with food. But because I was so obsessed about that and felt so much shame and so defeated by that, I wasn't going for I didn't care about relationships or my career or my major. I mean, I was going through the motions, but it wasn't really me. It was kind of like a ghost of me because I was so distraught about what was happening with food. So and I remember I was so lost with food, and I said, oh my goodness, I'll never forget when I made this decision. It was after I had binged again, out of control. I was so mad at myself. And I remember thinking, I'm never going to get this. I don't know how I'm ever going to solve this. I don't know if I'm going to live with this for the rest of my life. I have no idea how to handle this. And I said, if somebody like me who is this deep in this struggle could figure it out or solve it, that means anybody could do it. Because I'm really lost right now. I have no idea what I'm doing. And I told myself, like, if I could figure it out, that's what I'm going to do. And at the time, many of the people around me were also struggling with food. Who doesn't? Everybody overeats. Everybody feels stuffed and regrets about what they ate. Everybody's going on the next diet. Everybody's doing intermittent fasting or paleo or veganism. Like, everybody's doing that, right? So I remember making that promise because I was so lost. And by the way, I didn't think I'd ever have to fulfill it. It was just kind of like, if I figure it out, then I'll help people do it. But sure enough, through not just grad school, like it wasn't because I got my master's in dietetics. No, that wasn't it. Grad school was just like gave me the words, but it was really through going through the journey, soul searching, that got me to the other side. And so that's what got me here, was that promise that I made. And I continue to make, that helps me move through on other uncomfortable things, like speaking in front of people, uploading things on YouTube, or like learning how to edit, things that I don't want to do, and that are challenging for me, but that's what keeps me going anyway.
Okay. Eve, I got to like just play this a little bit here. So I'm a multidimensional conversationalist. So right now I'm going to go out to the dimension of anyone that's in here. I want you, if you're watching this here, like Eve, there's a lot of just incredibleness in what you just said. And so I'm going to pull out some elements to actually just invite people to slow down with. You talked about the promise you made to yourself. And then you said, and this was just like got me right in my core. You're like, and then I keep making to myself. All right. My question for any outlier that's listening to this right now: what's the promise that you've made? What's the promise that you've made to yourself? What's the promise, the commitment, the exchange, whatever it is? What's that promise that you've made to yourself? And what would happen in this moment if you recommitted yourself to it? What would happen in this moment if you recommitted yourself and you continued to do that? That there's something in there. And I have to sometimes have to answer these questions for myself. So for me, my promise is like, okay, I have to really check in with this here. All right, what feels real for me in this moment is that my promise is that I am going to be a living example, and be like, and to like live my life and experience out loud. So what it is, like whatever's happening on the inside, it's going to be spoken out externally. And there's something in there about like my promise is like it's this moment right here, like rather than just speaking it and saying it should be done, to actually live it and to have it be, to experience it with one another. So that does feel on point. But I needed to kind of just check in on that, because there've been times where I've done speaking to a camera and I haven't actually been with people. I haven't actually been, the vulnerability we were talking about earlier hasn't actually come out. So I want to just call that in there. So I was really struck. I was really struck with that promise. And I think that it's a really powerful tool towards things. Anything else you want to say about that before I move on?
Yeah, I didn't think I'd have to keep it,
Yeah.
because I
Right.
was so at the bottom, and it's been staying true to that. That's really helped me move forward. So that's it, like that, like it sounds all noble, right? But I want to be clear that where it came from was, it was from a selfish place. As you said, how interesting, you said that at the very beginning. It came from a very selfish place of, I need to figure this out for me. I need to move through this. There has to be the other side. I really pray and hope there is. So yeah, came from a selfish place.
I am so glad you called that in here. And there's like, because it's like it's like the service came through the selfish element. And I think that there's something in it, especially for us as outliers. Like there's something that we do that's different than others. If it was the norm, if it was what everyone else was doing, like it wouldn't constitute itself in its outlier form, you know? And so I'm really glad you're making sure we don't miss that. It's not just set a promise and go. It's like it might come from like a place where you may not even think that you can live up to it, but just continue to commit. And I'm sure there's times where you haven't lived up to that promise, but what I hear from you is that you continue to recommit. It's not like since then and from then on I was perfect at all. It wasn't that at all, right? Yeah, that reminds me, before the end of this, we still need to hear your brand muffin story. But I'll go to something else real quick beforehand. So I really appreciate that. And while I'm out in this other dimension talking outliers here, I'm going to call out something else that really struck me about listening to you here. Eve, you're incredibly engaging because they are so real. And I can feel like tears coming to the back of my eyes with just how well the experience yourself and your people. And as you were talking, like I heard like from a business and leadership perspective, they'll talk about like, go know your niche. What are their problems? What are all these things here? I'm like, this is someone who really understands. This is what it feels like to be on the receiving end of someone who has gotten clear enough with like what people actually go through. And it's really taken me, I have to be very honest, again, this part, and insight coming out, is making me like really do a quick take and say like, for my outliers, how much am I out in the world really speaking to the parts of the things that I don't want anyone to know about being an outlier? The oh my gosh, I come into shows, to environments, and I feel like I'm making it up on the spot. And is anyone gonna like, am I gonna get laughed out or thrown out, or people think that it's a complete waste of my time, or their time? And I just want to there's something about you that you talk about vulnerability and you do it. It feels like you do it really well now, but I want to just really acknowledge you for it. I want to call out that element of like, this felt great to like receive and to hear. And then I also just want to just like, it's just clear, that this is your domain. Like you are the queen of this realm here, and like it is cool to be with someone that is like on top of the game to that extent. So let me bring all that into it. We can come back to whatever dimension we were at beforehand, or you can meet me up there if you want, and you want to talk to any outliers out there. But it's just such an experience to be with you because of that.
I'm moved. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I received that. Thank you. And it's amazing coming from you, because these are the things I'm thinking while I'm talking to you. So thank you for bringing us up and out and in and back in. This is so fun.
Yeah, we got to play a little bit. We got to play a little bit here. So thank you for taking us a bit on your journey. You shared a bit about like what you've been creating with your clients, how you're helping them right now. What excites you, like as you look to like the horizon and the things that you're doing? Maybe it's a project, maybe it's a program, maybe it's a thing that you're doing with some of your clients. Like, what excites you about like what's coming up on the horizon for you in the work that you do?
A couple of things.
Yes.
Um, Something that I really love is as people move through their relationship with food, because again, after years of chronic dieting and struggling with food and trying to follow the outside rules, when somebody learns how to become oriented from the inside out with food, it begs the question, where else in my life am I living from the outside in?
Mm.
So it's been really exciting to move forward with my clients who are more advanced, once they resolve their eating issues, into deeper, even deeper alignment with themselves, and help them live their truth in other areas of their life. So I help them harness their intuition, their inner knowing, um, and the challenge of just not knowing what their truth is, but moving closer and closer to living into alignment with it. I say closer and closer because it's a process. We can't just snap our fingers and suddenly be this person who knows their truth and lives in alignment with that, especially if much of their lives has been built on things like, what should I do, or what's the right thing, or what's the wisest thing, as opposed to what's true for me. So that's been very exciting, really rewarding to work with that. I mean, all my work is rewarding. And my fantasy is that I want to work towards is doing things back in real life again. All my business is virtual. And this has been really fun. It's been very convenient, but I'm really excited. I'm not really sure what it's going to look like yet, but to do something IRL in real life. I'm hoping with groups of people who identify as women, creating safe spaces to talk about the relationship with food, body image, intuition, their soul, and living from that soulful place. So I'm really excited to work on creating that as well.
Mm. Mm. Ah, that feels exciting. That feels really exciting. Thank you for even like bringing it in there. It feels like this is like in development. Can I ask Eve? I am thoroughly enjoying the journey that we're on. We're about the top of our time here today, and I think you're incredible. I think the work that you do is incredible. I think the way that you the way that you connect, it just feels so real, so doable. It feels like work, but it's like work that I can do with like more of a smile on my face. You know what I mean? And so I I respect you tremendously in what you do. I'm so glad that you're out in this world living out this mission here. And I'm really, really grateful that you've made this promise and that you recommit to it on such a regular basis. One of the things I love to do is like when the IRL in real life, in life real, yes. When the in real life activities come on, or whatever the next project that you take on that really, really excites you, can you let me know? Can we bring you, I would love to bring you back in front of like back, not just in front of, because I realize like that's not the space that we hold here, but back with Outliers, and I love to make sure that they know about the opportunity to come and spend time with you in person. Because we've only had a virtual experience, and like you've come through, like you're like who you are shines through the camera. It's wonderful to receive. Like I'm wearing a yellow shirt, and I'm like, oh, I don't have to bring it. Like the energy is actually coming out this way, you know. And so I just want to just say here, like, and put in my commitment here, like, I cannot wait to help in any way, shape, or form to help you uh, help make, help bridge the wonderful things that you're bringing to life with the wonderful people that are in my community and beyond, so that like that can continue to live out there. And I have no problem saying this to you, because I just feel so much integrity and alignment with it, because you come from a place of integrity and alignment. That's it. I'm just like, there's not a single person I can think of who would not benefit from spending time with you. And so I'm just going to, are you open to that invitation?
Wow, I'm inspired by it. First of all, thank you on so many levels about what you just said. So thank you, thank you, thank you. I'd absolutely love that. Yes.
Awesome. Awesome, awesome, awesome. All right, Outliers. So like this journey is going to keep going. Yeah, Eve, we'll have other conversations. Like there's things in here of like, oh, how did you get into the place of like sharing in the videos and creating and stepping into your leadership and saying, okay, I'm going to do this, right? I want to leave more time for that. So we might have that in another conversation, and maybe some things that come from there. If there's like, let's instead do two things. Let's give you a chance to like, oh yeah, this is what I want. If someone, we talked about what's come up on the horizon. If someone is like, I am ready to go on to cultivate and live a different relationship with food right now. And I think Eve's the person I want to explore this with, right? Like, what is the best way for them to stay in contact? What's the best way for them to deepen their relationship with you, Eve? How can someone do that?
Great. There are a few ways. What I wanted to offer your listeners is a complimentary food freedom session with me. And I can share that link. So if you want to send out to your listeners, I'd be happy to do that. And also on my website, vitamineve.com, I could share that link as well. There are tons of complimentary videos on there on YouTube. I've tried to make as much as I can available so people can find out. My TEDx talk is also a great resource to get you started in taking your next steps and learning how to listen to yourself. And I also have a free ebook on my website as well. So a lot of complimentary ways to start living in greater alignment with your body and with yourself, especially that juicy complimentary call with me, where you'll get a chance to really get clear on the vision you're creating for yourself around your relationship with food. Because you first have to see it before you create it. If you ever created anything, you know that. And then from there, together with me, I'll be there to help you. We're going to uncover the things that are holding you back, the things that you do that consistently keep you stuck. And very often it's not what you think it is. And from there, you'll leave the session with greater clarity, inspiration, more motivated to take your next steps. So if any of that resonates with you, we'll make those links accessible.
Yeah, why don't you just go ahead and say it as well, just in case someone's just listening to this. It's something where
Sure.
like the link is easy to.
Sure, it's www.vitamineve, VITAMINEVE, my name.com. So vitamineve.com.
Perfect. Awesome. I really want to make sure that we keep that channel open here. It's been incredible having you in this conversation. I just feel like there's space for so much more to come out here. This is a nice way for us to begin this part of the journey here. If there's anything that you would love to share with anyone right now, like maybe an insight, maybe a question, something that you might want them to like walk away with or take away from this conversation, what's one thing that you love for Outliers here to walk away with?
Oh, that's just one thing. Well, first of all, I just want to thank you all. I want to thank you, Niiamah, too, for inviting me here for this opportunity. But that having that peaceful relationship with food and trusting your body is possible. Because when you have to go to the bathroom, when you pee, you never second guess that. You never think, did I go too many times today? Did I pee too much? Did I pee enough? No, we don't have that conversation with going to the bathroom. But interestingly, we have that conversation when it comes to food and eating. And what I want to say is you could have a relationship with food as peaceful as it is with your relationship with having to relieve yourself, meaning not second guessing yourself, having just the right amount, knowing exactly what to do. I know that's a strange metaphor, but I feel like it's really relatable because it's a biological function, a self-regulating biological function. They both are. However, with food, there's a lot more baggage that we have. And so I just wanted to put that out there, that if any of this resonated with you, that sanity and peace and ease with food is totally possible, and I'd be happy to help you.
Well, I'm glad that you're out in the world doing this. I'm not going to say much because I want that last bit to just be out in the world. But Eve, I've said it once, I'll say it many times. You're a tremendous person. Thank you for doing what you do. And more importantly, thank you for being who you be. All right.
Thank you, Niiamah. You too. Thanks.